Okay, we are starting to get into the technical side of things now rather than the concept, but you are saying you present a lecture first, and first of all, as Bram was saying, the chances that somebody's going to stay focused in your lecture for an hour is slim. The chance of them staying focused on a video for anything longer than 8 to 10 minutes maybe is slim in any case. Most of the research shows that they clock out after about 6 or 7 minutes. Not to lecture, the point is to think, is to reconceptualize how do I get the essence across of what I need to get across that forms fundamental background information for them. So it can be through a recorded lecture, it can be through taking your lecture that would be an hour and chunking it up into 5 little different styles of screencast and video and other ways of getting information out there to the students. The idea, I'll give you an example, and probably some of you guys have heard me share this example before, but I think it's a great example. You can go and Google a guy called Dr. Eric Mazur from Harvard, and he is M-A-Z-U-R. Okay. He teaches physics, and he uses peer instruction methods and the flipped classroom methods and a whole bunch of methods that do not entail him lecturing to do a physics class. You'd think, gee, surely for a physics class you have to have a lecture standing and explaining stuff. Now he does, he gets involved in that, but he got given the opportunity to take a year off and design the perfect course. And this course, at the end of the day, involved also identifying on campus a sort of a non-functional library space or something, and they redesigned this to be the venue in which they would engage with their face-to-face sessions. And he specifically designed it so it's impossible to stand in one space and speak to the whole class at once. So, in other words, it became impossible to slip automatically into that mode of wanting to lecture. And rather what they do is he chunks his information into different ways in which students can engage with that information. He engages with small groups, the groups engage with each other, they teach each other, they do all sorts of things like that. And at the end of the day, their project is displayed as part of an open day type of thing. And they have people from the physics department that will come around and ask students, what was the problem? How did you solve that problem? What theory did you have to bring in to solve this problem? What were your challenges and all that kind of stuff? They had to really defend their project, but so could the public. So the assessment even is totally different. It's not a traditional. There is no exam in that particular physics course. You'd think, how do you do a physics course and assess it without an exam at the end? And it is a highly rated course. So, it's worth going to look. That's a sort of a very nutshell approach. But I don't know if I fully answered you, Gladden.
Yeah, you did. I'm just thinking about something else. The quality of students and the type of students. Will it work? Can we assume that they're going to look at that video in advance? Because you give them basic things, they don't do it.
I understand. That.
How do we get around that?
That's a very good question. The question is, I'm trying to remember to restate, how do you get around the fact that students are coming to class, they are not necessarily interested, they have a different mindset towards learning and what learning is about, and they come perhaps with the mindset of they're here just to be fed information, and by the end they magically somehow are cleverer and deserve a qualification, and all those kind of things. And typically the experience that very often happens in lectures is to say, go do this reading, and they come and nobody's done the reading, right? And so you automatically start having to cover the bases again. So I had at Wits, during my master's program, I had a professor who made it very awkward for us. We were just a small group of about 7 or 8 students, and he gave us a number of readings to read, and we came and sat in this 4-hour-long session, and we had to address this problem that he posed. And there's no ways you could actually just pick this out of the air. You had to understand the readings in order to do that. And he posed the question and he sat. He didn't fill in the blanks. We sat for a long, long time. Slowly people started trying to come up with things, and we knew that we were biting bubbles, but we were very uncomfortable. The reality is everybody read their papers the next time around. The thing, I'm not saying there's a perfect solution to this, but the thing is that we teach our students how to respond, basically. If you give them the latitude to not read because you're going to cover the basics, because you feel, well, how do I move on next time if I don't cover the basics and all that kind of stuff? You're going to just teach them to not read because they're going to come to class expecting to get that summary again, right? So it's a painful process to make that transition. But, there's other things that we want to think about as well. We don't only just want to force train them. We don't want to be circus masters, right? Training them to do different tricks. What we want to do is to engage them in deeper thinking. We want them to want to know. We want to engage them in being inspired to understand. So we have to be inspirational in our deliveries and that sort of thing as well. I think when it comes to, in my opinion anyway, no plan is a definite recipe for failure, right? There's lots of cliched sayings around, have no target yet and you'll hit it all the time and all that kind of stuff. But I really think the critical part is now what we're engaging in is the design stage of things. We can't just think about our content as, well, this is a bunch of content that we've got to share in a lecture. We've got to think, how do I chunk that content that should be shared into what is the story that we're trying to tell, first of all, and then what is a way that's going to constantly get students to engage with that storyline. Okay, it might come across as, I'm actually going to take over HB's slides since he's not here. If I can, that is. I don't know if I'm getting to really answering your question, but it's a challenge. I'm not trying to make this simple. Please understand. I've been on that side of the classroom for many enough years to understand that this is not a one solution fits all type of thing.
I think the trouble is also sometimes the class is big. If you've only got 7 or 10 students, you can sit there like in a tutorial and you can quickly pick up whether or not the guys have done the work. But when you've got a class of 180 sitting there, and 30 of them done, and 30 of them have done the work properly, and 100 vaguely looked at it and they read it and responded. You really just got to just carry on. I mean, you can't just you can't force the others to work or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also the level of the student, master student.
No, they're all very valid. They're very valid options.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say is, let's challenge ourselves to thinking of ways to address that. For argument's sake, if you're sitting with 150 people and your job is to lecture content to them, you've got no option but to move on, irrespective of the fact that 30 of them don't know what's going on. Okay. But if we've rethought how we're going to do this, and they were supposed to engage with content beforehand, they didn't, some of them didn't, and they come to class and you're not going to step in as a proxy now to deliver a summary of it, and you're not going to move on to other lecture broadcast, if you like. What you're going to have is opportunities for students to discuss with each other, and that's where I think the sort of peer teaching thing comes in. If you think about it beforehand, possibly in terms of how you give certain responsibilities to certain people, there's a process called reciprocal learning. So you can give, they should read the whole thing, but you give one group of students the primary focus. You've got to be experts on this area. You've got to be experts on this area. And then you put them together in groups where they have to then become responsible for each other to make sure that those guys understand their area as well. And if they didn't take responsibility, it might sort of require a little bit of work by everybody to catch up on those spaces, and maybe you can plug a hole later. But they're going to feel that sort of pressure next time because they feel that they let the team down. What I'm saying, I'm not saying that is necessarily the answer to your problem.
Yeah, no, sure.
But what we need to do is, how do we solve this problem? It's a problem. How do we solve the problem? We've got to ask ourselves different questions sometimes.
Roy, I think assessment is a very powerful tool that we underestimate from time to time. My first years, I want them to think out of the box, but just to ask them to do it.
To think firstly is a problem.
Think out of the box, forget the textbook or link the basic constructs to the problem, but don't just rewrite the textbook. So the only way is basically to destroy the books. I mean, I really take them to a practical example. I used in this assignment the Checkers mini promotion, and I asked them to link it to business processes that we're teaching them. And you'll be amazed, in the beginning they're very scared and uncertain, but once they get going, they generate levels of creativity that blows your mind. positively and negatively. Yeah.
That's perfectly true, Bram. And I think that the problem with textbooks, when there's a prescribed text for our particular subject, is that we automatically want to default, at least, to the fact that, well, the authors knew what they were talking about, and so that their thoughts on how we should structure and build this content from point A to point Z is the one and only way to do that. And that's not necessarily the case. And so we feel this pressure to deliver all of the content that's within a textbook. Now, different disciplines are different, I understand that, and some are more technical and require different foundations, and sometimes you don't have a choice. But for some of us, there is a choice in terms of things, and that's why, for me, it's very important that we think of this backwards almost. We think, what is the outcome that we want to get to? Okay? It must be measurable. It must be definable. You know, to say a student must understand whatever your topic is, how do you measure that? How do you measure understanding? You know, you can't. You can't really do that. You can measure certain ways in which they display understanding, but you've got to find what are those things that will display the understanding. And then your objective must clarify that.
I think